In major construction, a project schedule is never just some list of dates. Not at all. It's a living, breathing management tool. And when things go sideways, it becomes the number one piece of evidence in a really high-stakes dispute. So let's dive into this, because honestly, understanding how to build a realistic schedule is one of the most valuable things you can have in your toolkit. So what happens if your schedule isn't realistic? Well, the answer really boils down to this one number: 2. An unrealistic schedule, it's guaranteed to fail on you. And not just once. It's going to fail you twice, in two completely different but, well, equally catastrophic ways.
Right. 2 failures. So let's actually dig into what that really means for you and your project.
Okay, first up, you've got the operational failure. This is what happens on the ground. The schedule is basically useless. It just creates chaos, sets impossible goals for your team, and lets risk run absolutely wild. But the second failure, that's where the real financial pain comes in. This is the evidentiary failure. When you're in a dispute trying to get paid for delays, the other side's expert is going to tear that unrealistic schedule to shreds, and poof, your entire claim just vanishes.
And this quote right here just hits the nail on the head. Your whole delay analysis, your entire claim for money, it all rests on the foundation of that schedule. And if that foundation is weak, if it's not coherent, credible, and technically sound, it is literally like building on sand. It is going to collapse the second any pressure is applied.
So, how do we build a strong foundation? Well, it all starts with one thing: the baseline schedule. You've got to think of the baseline as the project's North Star. It's the original agreed-upon game plan. It is the single, undisputed point of reference we use to measure every bit of progress and every single delay from day one all the way to the very end. Now, what's really useful here is this checklist for a bulletproof baseline. It's got to cover the whole project, from the official notice to proceed straight through to final completion. And it has to include the entire scope. We're talking engineering, procurement, construction, the whole shebang. You can't just submit a high-level summary if the contract demands, say, a detailed Level 3 schedule that breaks everything down. And this last one is critical. The logic has to be transparent. Hidden or confusing logic is probably the fastest way for an expert to just throw your entire schedule right out the window. Okay, let's get into the technical heart of what makes a schedule realistic. We're talking about the 3 pillars that any forensic expert is going to go after immediately in a dispute. They are activity durations, logical sequencing, and resource loading. I mean, it's that simple. Get these 3 right, and your schedule is a reflection of reality. Get them wrong, and, well, it's just a work of fiction.
All right, pillar number 1, activity durations. Ideally, your durations are based on real-world stuff, measurable productivity, crew sizes, data you can actually point to. So where's the attack point for your opponent? It's when they see you've just used plug numbers, just guesses, or these wildly optimistic timelines with zero justification. They will call your plan a success-oriented fantasy, and they'll be right.
Pillar 2 is all about logical sequencing. This just means your plan has to respect physical reality. You have to pour the foundation before you can put up the walls. The technical attack points here are things like open-end activities that aren't linked to anything, or showing progress on tasks out of order. That is a dead giveaway that your team wasn't actually using the schedule to manage the work on site. And the third pillar is resource loading. Your schedule has to be buildable with the actual people and the actual space you have. The attack point is an insane manpower curve. I mean, if your schedule says you need 200 electricians in a room that can only physically hold 20, well, the plan's impossible. And a good expert will argue the project was unbuildable as planned from the very beginning. So, beyond all the technical stuff, a schedule has to pass one more really crucial filter: the good old common sense test. Because believe me, a schedule can be mathematically perfect, but logically just absurd. And this is so important. Just because an owner signed off on your schedule doesn't mean it's defensible. If that schedule defies basic engineering principles or standard industry practices, that administrative approval means absolutely nothing in a dispute. Common sense wins every time. Here is a perfect example. Let's say a project has a brand new, first-of-its-kind prototype control system, a DCS. It's high risk and it's essential. Now, flawed logic would show this huge, risky task as maybe near critical, giving it a little bit of wiggle room or float, but not on the main critical path that drives the project's finish date. Reasonable, common sense logic, it says a new, unproven, absolutely essential system has to be on the critical path because it is one of the single biggest risks to finishing on time.
Okay, so how can you, personally, spot a schedule that's headed for trouble before it's too late? This next part is basically an actionable checklist of the biggest red flags you should be looking for. So keep your eyes peeled for these warning signs. Things like illogical progress curves, like are you planning for peak productivity in the dead of winter, or resource overload, where you suddenly need way more workers than the local market can even supply. Then you get the more technical red flags, like unlinked activities just floating out there, or just failing to update the schedule regularly. And finally, watch out for sneaky stuff like manipulated calendars with tons of overtime baked in, or the abusive constraints to force dates and hide what the true critical path really is. All right, so avoiding those red flags is absolutely key. Now let's bring it all home and look at how a well-built, logical schedule gets transformed from just a planning tool into powerful, persuasive evidence. It really just comes down to 3 steps. 1. Preparation. You have to know your facts, your records, inside and out, cold. 2. Foundation. And this one is so vital. You need a fact witness, someone from the project, to get up there and testify that this schedule wasn't some academic exercise. It was actually used on site to plan the real work. And 3. Clarity. Your story has to be simple, logical, and backed up by all those records you've mastered. I mean, that's really the bottom line right there. If you can't prove that the schedule was actually used in the real world by the people doing the work, it has zero value as evidence. It might be an interesting academic model, but it is completely useless when you need it the most. Which brings us to the final question, and it's one you should be asking yourself on every single project you touch. Does your schedule reflect the messy, complicated physical reality of the job site, or is it just another success-oriented fantasy waiting to fail?